work as a caretaker for a private estate on Shelter Island, which sits right between the North and South Forks of Long Island. For those who don't know, it's a small island you can only get to by ferry, and during the off-season from November through March, barely anyone lives there full-time. The estate belongs to a wealthy family from Manhattan, who only uses it in the summers. My job is to maintain the grounds, check the pipes, make sure nothing breaks. During winter storms, the house sits on about 12 acres, most of which is dense woods that run down to the shoreline of the Peconic Bay. I have a small cottage on the property where I stay, and for most of the year it's just me out there. The nearest neighbor is about a half-mile down the road, and during winter that house is empty too. So when I say I am alone, I mean truly alone. I've been doing this for 4 years now and never had a problem. Until this past January, it started with a boat. I do a walk around the property every morning, and one morning, I noticed a small rowboat pulled up on the rocky shore at the bottom of the property. It was old wood paint peeling off, and there was a couple inches of freezing water sitting in the bottom of it. I figured it just came loose from someone's dock across the bay and drifted over with the tide, so I didn't think much of it. I planned to call the harbor master, but when I came back down that afternoon, the boat was gone. Tide probably pulled it back out. So I forgot about it until 2 days later when I found it in the exact same spot, same position, same angle, pulled up on the rocks, like someone had dragged it there on purpose. This time I looked more closely, and that's when I noticed the footprints in the wet sand leading away from the boat up toward the tree line. They were bare footprints, no shoes. In January on Shelter Island, where the ground is probably in the low 20s, I followed them for maybe 30 yards into the trees before they just stopped, like whoever made them vanished. Or climbed a tree. I looked up, but the branches were bare from winter. There was nowhere to hide. I told myself it was probably some local kid messing around. That night I was in my cottage watching TV around 11. When I heard something outside, it was subtle, which is what made it so unsettling. It was a tapping sound on the outside wall of my cottage, not knocking like a person would, but tapping like someone dragging a fingertip along the wood siding while walking slowly around the building. Tap, 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 tap with a rhythm to it, almost like counting. I muted the TV and listened. It went from the left wall around to the back and then stopped. I sat there for 5 minutes in silence before convincing myself it was a branch or animal and turned the TV back on. Next morning, I checked around the cottage and there were no branches anywhere near the walls. The closest tree was 15 feet away, but what I did find was more barefoot prints in the frozen mud, circling the entire cottage, following the wall, about 2 feet out all the way around. In one continuous loop, the prints were the same as the shore ones. Bare feet, long toes, and deep impressions from the ball of the foot, like whoever this was had been walking on their toes, almost tiptoeing around my home. While I was inside, I took photos and called my buddy Derek, who lives year-round on the island about 2 miles from me. I told him everything, and he said he hadn't seen anything unusual, but told me something I wish he hadn't. He said there were stories going back decades about strange things on the island during winter. The old-timers talked about something that would come across the water when the island emptied out. They called it a visitor. And the story was, it had been coming here long before anyone settled on the island, and it didn't like that people built on its land. Derek said he didn't believe it, but his grandfather swore he'd seen something on the shore. One winter night in the 60s, something tall and pale that walked like a person, but moved wrong, like its joints bent in directions they shouldn't. That night the tapping came back, but this time at the front door, tap, 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 same rhythm. I was in bed staring at the ceiling listening. It moved from the door to my bedroom window, which is on the ground floor. The curtain wasn't fully drawn, and through the gap I could see the glass and something on the other side. It wasn't a clear shape, more like a shadow pressed close to the glass. But it was tall, filling the whole window frame top to bottom, and my windows are almost 5 feet tall. The tapping stopped and was replaced by this sound I can only describe as a wet exhale, like someone breathing out through a mouthful of water right against my window. I did not move. I barely breathed. I watched this shadow fill my window for what felt like forever, but was probably 4 minutes. Then it slid to the left and was gone next morning. The rowboat was back, and this time there was something in it. Sitting in the bottom was a pile of small bones, looked like fish or bird bones, arranged in a neat pile in the center, not scattered like an animal would leave them. These were placed carefully, almost like an offering. I called the police, and an officer named Tom came out, looked at everything, the prints, the bones, the boat, and said he wasn't sure what to make of it. Said he'd increase patrols, but 1 or 2 cops for an entire island. There's only so much they can do. That night, I decided to stay up and catch whoever this was. I turned off all lights, sat in the chair by the front window with a view of the yard and tree line, and waited around 1 in the morning. I saw movement at the edge of the trees. Something stepped out into the open yard. The moonlight was bright enough to see, and I knew immediately this was not a person. It was tall, probably close to 7 feet, and incredibly thin. Its arms hung down past its knees, and its skin was pale, almost gray-white in the moonlight. It walked slowly towards my cottage, and the way it moved is what still messes with me. Its legs bent slightly backwards at the knee, giving each step this strange bobbing motion like a wading bird in shallow water. Its head was a bit too large for its body, tilted to one side like it was curious, studying my cottage. As it got closer, then I heard it. The tapping started right on the other side of the wall. From me, tap, 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 inches away, separated by wood and nothing else. It moved along the wall to the front door and stopped. I watched the handle, and I am not exaggerating. The handle slowly turned downward. Something was trying to open my door. I had locked it, but seeing that handle move on its own, knowing what was standing on the other side, is something I can't fully explain to anyone. The handle went back up, and the tapping started again, moving away around the cottage, doing its loop. I ran to the bedroom window to try and see it come around, and when it passed by, I got my closest look at its face. And I wish I hadn't. Its eyes were wide apart and reflected moonlight like an animal's, but they were large and completely dark. Its mouth was open, but not like how a person opens their mouth. Its jaw was hanging down, way lower than any human jaw could, making this long oval shape. And inside was just black. No teeth, no tongue, just a dark void. And from it came that wet breathing sound, that slow gurgling exhale. It finished its loop and walked back across the yard into the trees. I watched the tree line the rest of the night. I did not sleep next morning. I packed a bag, drove to the ferry, and stayed with Derek for 3 days. When I came back, the boat was gone. The prints washed away by rain, and everything looked normal. It's been about 2 weeks, and nothing has happened. But every night, I lock my door, close every curtain, and do not look outside after dark, because I know it's still somewhere on this island. And I know when winter comes and this place empties out again, it will come back across the water like it always has. I live on Orcas Island, which is one of the San Juan Islands up in Washington State if you've never been there. It's beautiful during the day, but at night, when the fog rolls in off the water and everything goes quiet, it's a completely different place. My house is small, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, sits right on the edge of about 60 acres of old-growth forest that runs all the way down to the eastern shoreline. I bought the place 3 years ago because I wanted to get away from people. I worked in Seattle for almost 10 years doing construction, and the city just wore me down. So when I found this place listed for way under market value because of how remote it is, I jumped on it. The closest house to mine is about a mile through the woods, and the guy who lives there is an older man named Gene, who I see maybe once a month when he drives past on the main road. It's just me and my dog out here. His name is Brick. Has a brown and white pit bull about 4 years old, and he's the most loyal dog I've ever owned. He sleeps at the foot of my bed every single night and has since the day I brought him home. He's not a barker either. That's the thing about Brick. He almost never barks when someone pulls up to the house. He just stands at the door with his tail going, but he doesn't make a sound. So when he started barking 3 weeks ago, it caught my attention immediately. It was a Tuesday night around 2 in the morning, and I woke up to Brick standing at the bedroom window, barking his head off. Not playful barking either. This was deep aggressive, barking the kind where his whole body was tense and the hair on his back was standing straight up. I got out of bed and looked out the window. but I couldn't see anything. It was foggy and dark, and the tree line is only about 40 feet from that side of the house. I told him to knock it off, and he eventually stopped and came back to bed. But he didn't sleep. He just lay there with his head up staring at the window the next night. Same thing, 2 in the morning almost. Same thing. On the dot, Brick was at the window again, barking and growling at something outside. I looked out again and saw nothing but fog and trees. I figured maybe a deer or a raccoon had been coming through the yard at night and setting him off. Animals move through my property all the time. It's just part of living out here, so I didn't think much of it. Third night, same exact thing. 2 in the morning. Brick goes off at the window, barking and snarling, and this time he ran out of the bedroom down the hall to the back door and was scratching at it. Trying to get out, I followed him and stood at the back door looking through the glass into the yard, and I swear I saw something move. At the tree line, it was quick, just a shift in the shadows, like something had been standing there and stepped back behind a tree. I watched for a few minutes, but nothing else moved. I told Brick to come back to bed, and he did. But he whined the whole way back, which he never does. The 4th night, I was ready for it. I stayed up past midnight, sitting on the couch, waiting, because I knew at 2 it was going to happen again, and it did right at 2. Brick started growling from the bedroom, and then the barking started. I grabbed my jacket, my boots, and a flashlight, and went to the back door. Brick was already there, scratching and barking. I opened the door and stepped out onto the back porch. The air was cold and the fog was thick, but not as bad as the nights before. I could actually see the tree line pretty clearly. I shined my flashlight across the yard and into the first few feet of the woods, and that's when I noticed something was off. There was a smell out there that I hadn't noticed the previous nights. It was this heavy, rotten smell like meat that had been left out in the sun for days. It was strong enough that I actually covered my nose with my sleeve. Brick came out onto the porch behind me, and he was doing something I'd never seen him do before. He was barking but backing up at the same time, like he wanted to alert me to something, but didn't actually want to go towards it. I stepped off the porch into the yard and shined the light along the tree line, slowly going left to right, and about halfway across, I stopped because something was standing between 2 trees. At first, I thought it was a person. It had the general shape of a person. 2 arms, 2 legs, standing upright. But something was wrong with the proportions. It was tall, way too tall, probably 7 feet, and its body was thin, unnaturally thin, like skin stretched tight over bones with nothing in between. Its arms were long, hanging down past its waist, and they didn't move at all. They just hung there like dead weight. Its skin was pale, not like a white person, pale, but like actual pale, like the color had been drained out of it, completely almost gray in the beam of my flashlight. It was just standing there between the trees, not moving, and it was facing me. I froze, and I completely froze. I couldn't move. I couldn't yell. I just stood there with my flashlight pointed at this thing. Brick had stopped barking and was now just growling low and steady from the porch behind me. I kept the light on it, and that's when I looked at its face and I felt something I have never felt before in my life. It was pure dread, like my brain was screaming at me that I was looking at something I was never supposed to see. Its face was mostly featureless. The nose was barely there, just 2 small slits, and the mouth was a thin, straight line that stretched too wide across its face, almost ear to ear. But it was the eyes that got me. They weren't eyes, they were just holes. 2 black, empty hollows where eyes should have been. And I don't mean dark eyes, I mean there was nothing there, just deep black sockets, like looking into 2 empty tunnels. And even though there were no eyes, I could feel it looking at me. I could feel it watching me, studying me the way you study something you've never seen before. Then it moved, its head tilted slowly to one side like a dog does when it hears a strange sound, and the thin line of its mouth started to open, and it opened wider than any human mouth could, and from it came this sound, this low vibrating hum that I didn't hear with my ears. I felt it in my chest, like standing too close to a bass speaker. It rattled something inside me. Brick let out one loud yelp, and ran back inside the house through the open door, and that broke my freeze. I stumbled backwards, dropping my flashlight, and when it hit the ground, the beam spun, and for a split second, it lit up the thing from below, and I saw it had taken a step forward, one long, slow step closer to me. I didn't pick up the flashlight. I turned and ran to the porch, got inside, slammed the door, and locked it. I went to every window in the house and closed every blind, every curtain. I found Brick hiding under my bed, shaking, which, if you knew this dog, you'd understand how terrifying that is. Nothing scares him. Nothing has ever scared him. Until that night, I sat in my bedroom with the lights on and my back against the wall until the sun came up, and Brick stayed under that bed the entire time. He didn't come out until daylight was coming through the windows. The next morning, I walked out to where I had dropped my flashlight. It was still there in the yard, but when I looked at the tree line where that thing had been standing, the ground was torn up. The dirt and moss were ripped apart in an area about 3 feet wide, like something had been clawing at the ground with its hands or feet, and there was a trail of that same torn up earth leading deeper into the woods. I did not follow it. I called Gene, the old man down the road, and told him what happened. And he got real quiet on the phone. He said his wife had seen something matching that description about 8 years ago, standing at the edge of their property at night. He said she never liked to talk about it, and that she'd been sleeping with the lights on. Ever since he told me whatever it is, it's been on this island for a long time, and the best thing to do is not go looking for it. He said it watches and it waits, and it keeps coming back to the places it finds people. It's been 3 weeks since that night, and every night at 2 in the morning, Brick still wakes up and growls at the window. But he doesn't bark anymore, he just stares at the glass, with the hair on his back raised, and then after about 10 minutes, he stops and puts his head down, and I lay there wondering if it's still standing at the tree line, just outside the reach of any light, staring at my house with those empty black eyes waiting for the night I forget to lock the door.